your neighbor who cares for Stella. She mentioned that while you guys were together, that she used to see you more often outside, playing with Stella, being involved and being active. So the bond that you have with Stella, the way you described, I do not question that at all. And that's from more than one resource. More than one source. Once again, as I mentioned, the home was appropriate, no issues whatsoever. I also do understand your position on the inability to co-parent with mom. You believe that you try, but you don't go anywhere, which leads to more frustration. The thing about you, sir, is that I think of self-awareness. During the evaluation, you've confessed to me several things. You mentioned, quote, when things get bad, that you admit that you get upset and you start blaming, end quote. This was a conversation we had. This was, I believe this was around late September, early October. You also talked about how you have low self-esteem with how the world views you as an African-American male. And even sometimes you mentioned that even you question yourself if you're being irrational. I think it's important to say these things, and for me to bring it out is because you are aware of these things versus being completely oblivious to it, right? You also mentioned that, quote, you use more profanity now, you feel that you're angrier now compared to before, end quote. So while in one way you are aware, my question is, what are you doing about it? And I remember the conversation we had in October was to go to counseling, to the initiative to go to counseling. I think we had a candid conversation. I was very careful because I can't give you legal advice or any recommendations in the middle of the evaluation, but I thought you were very sincere, honestly. And I thought you were very sincere when it comes to your struggles with this, because you didn't want to go through this. But I think with that being said, I also believe that you're also stuck in your ways. You have strong feelings about certain things that may not help and contradict what you're trying to accomplish. Like, for instance, you talked to me and mentioned that you shouldn't have to pay child support or alimony if she's the one that doesn't want to reconcile, get back with you. Well, you filed for divorce. You took that initiative, although, yes, you try to stop and try to reconcile, and there was a bit of confusion on what you'd have done based on legal advice before. But to make a statement like that, one shouldn't have to do with the other. I mean, it's just, even if that was the case with you and the roles were reversed, one thing shouldn't have to do with the other. And I use that as an example of kind of like stuck in your ways. You also mentioned that you made comments such as, if it's ideal, why not do it? Well, sometimes I feel that you may believe it's ideal, but you may not be taking other people's opinions, because that might not be ideal for them, their point of view. You understand what I mean? So that's why, although you're self-aware in a lot of things, and I know that's part of the struggle, but I think also you're very firm on certain things as well. Is it a mental health issue? I don't know. When you have one therapist saying that she needed to further evaluate, to further assess, and then you go to a different therapist and says that it may not be necessary for psych eval. So I myself am confused. But sometimes one thing that I did hear from you a lot of times is an issue of race. There was an issue related to, I guess your daughter was about 1.5 years old at a time, and that I guess she was learning the colors, and she mentioned yellow, and that's something that you felt that it was probably, like an indirect message, a racist comment or something like that she was being taught. There was another example about a monkey that I guess was given by maternal grandparents, and you thought that was another message, indirect message, racist message. You talked about, I guess, being with friends when you guys were together, and then friends making a comment about hang something, and you took the word hang, and you felt that that was once again another message of a racist message, indirect message. You sound very suspicious a lot of times too with what you're being told and your interpretation of things. Is that a mental health issue? I don't know. Is that an issue related to what's going on now? Because I mean, let's be honest, guys. Going through this process it's not healthy. It's not easy, and it brings a lot of emotions and feelings of hurt, resentment, etc., etc. How much of it is related to that? I'm not sure. But I also feel just like I felt that Ms. Nicholson kind of contradicted herself, and I gave the example, but so did you. During this whole evaluation, it was going from one extreme to the other, meaning that you're describing Ms. Nicholson of being this person who's trying to take a child away from you, a person who is a bad influence on your child, using your child as a pawn, manipulative and all that stuff. But yet, you're telling me you want to be with her. You want to reconcile. You want to save the marriage. You want to save the family. So, would you really want to be with a person that you just described like that? You don't have to answer that question, but I'm saying, as an outsider looking in, if I'm being told these things, I'm like, all right, so what's really happening here? Sorry guys, lost my... There was a copy of a text message that supposedly you had told her that, I guess you proposed to her that if she was to have one more night with you, that your proposal was that if that was the case, then you will give her what she wants, which is primary residency and things like that. You're accusing her of using a child as a pawn and manipulating, but yet it seems like if that text message is true, it's almost like using your own child as bargaining chip. And that's completely inappropriate if that's the case. But once again, I understand you're having difficulty with the marriage. There's still some unresolved issues. And maybe that's the reason why it's just difficult for you guys to work together. So in conclusion, I mean this very much, guys. I always look at the good in people. I think you guys are good people. You're just going through a difficult time. The love for Stella, I think, is genuine for both of you guys. Keep in mind that just because one parent has a certain approach to parenting doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It could be just different, right? And sometimes I feel that you may balance each other out in that sense. And how much of that was due to, just the dynamics from your marriage, that it came out to be. But the reality is that now that you guys are separated, some of the things that mom used to do for the most part, now that has to do. Some of the things that used to do for most part, now mom has to do. That's part of the process, guys. But you can't use it against each other either, though. I just don't see at this point, with everything that all the information that I obtained, I just don't see you guys having the ability to work together. And as you'll see, that did impact my recommendations. I do have concerns that it discontinues the exposure to Stella, because I was told that during exchanges, Stella is in the middle of it and hearing some of this stuff and seeing some of this stuff that's happening during your exchanges. My concern is that she gets older, she's going to stand a little bit more, and she's going to be affected more. She's going to be impacted more, and she's going to start, building resentment towards both of you guys or one of you guys. But my concern is, please Whatever's going on, it needs to stop and shield Stella from all this. I hope this helps. You're going to be one step further to your divorce, so you guys can start the healing process. And I think that's part of what's been happening too, the fact that this has been dragging for quite some time. Obviously has been affecting your emotions. Just give me a second, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the recommendations. In fact, I might just do that from my computer. Actually, no, I have it here. So with that said, number one, my recommendation is for Ms. Shannon Nicholson, for her to have sole legal custody of Stella. Number two, the parenting plan is the same. The fact that that bond that dad has with child has with that, I didn't want to change that. The only thing that I added that is different is instead of Sunday night, it was Monday overnight. But basically, it's a shared parenting plan.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. Could you say that again? Could you start over the first sentence you said?
Yeah, my recommendation is for Ms. Nicholson to have sole legal custody of Stella. Number two, for the parenting plan to remain the same, with the exception that instead of Sunday, it'll be Monday. You'll see it. I'll email it to you guys. Number three, parents should have phone contact with my child every evening from 7 p.m. to 7:30 during their non-parenting times. You'll see number four. I don't necessarily have to read it, but I made recommendations regarding holiday schedule, and I broke